Welcome, 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 folks. Seeing you come on in. Welcome, welcome. We are so glad that you're all here. As you know, if you've been here before, we always start our service by inviting you in and also inviting in some guests from the more than just human world. So as you arrive, I'm also inviting some other folks who were requested in last month's service. See if you can figure out who this is. Fairly easy one this month. If you landed on pig, that is correct. That is who I have invited in today. Those are the sounds of pigs, the family of Suidae. You may not know them that way. As a kid, I was always told that these creatures oink, which doesn't really do that sound that we just heard justice, does it? I did learn this week that in Japanese, pigs are said to boo. In German, they grunz. And in Swedish, they nuff. Our words for their speech are as diverse as their population, it seems. I read this week that there are over 7 million pigs living free in 38 states in the United States. Worldwide, there are over a dozen wild pig species, from the forest hog to the desert warthog, the Red River hog, the Sulawesi babirusa, and I'm not sure if I pronounced that right or not. I got to meet those folks. And the Palauan bearded pig. I am inviting you to learn a little more about these intelligent social beings and the challenges they face at a link I'll pop in the chat after the opening remarks. Welcome to Compassion Consortium Sunday Service. I'm Reverend Sarah Bowen, and I'm joined today by co-founders Reverend William Melton and Victoria Moran, and our wonderful team members, Phil, Elaine, and Jen. In order to keep a contemplative feel for our service and to ensure we don't have unwanted, disruptive guests, we've turned off most of the Zoom functions until our concluding fellowship time. If you're new to us, welcome. We're interfaith, interspiritual, and interspecies. Interfaith means we welcome and feature people of any spiritual or religious tradition or system of meaning making. And today we have two fascinating folks with us. First, Shad Groverland, who's leading a new plant-forward church that he's going to share with us about. And Carol Saunders, who many of you know, who will be sharing more about the fall in-person retreat that you are all cordially invited to. Interspiritual means we believe underneath all of the particularities and the specificities of the world's wisdom traditions, there lies access to a deeper unity of shared spiritual experience. And our service is designed to facilitate interspirituality. Interspecies means we desire to have a truly inclusive spiritual community that rejects human superiority and considers the needs of all species, including all Suidae, whether they are wild or captive or exploited. We'd like to think and lift up this month the concerns of pigs. But also take a moment as we enter to consider who's in your habitat today. Which other species do you live with or live around you? What needs do they have? What challenges do they face? One of the challenges I think we animal advocates and activists face is the ability to hold a worldview that helps us have stable well-being. We can have a hard time seeing things that are positive in the world, and we can have a hard time accessing happiness or feelings of awe and wonder and joy. And so I'd like to reflect on that a little bit as we start today, because plentiful research backs up that observation. For example, studies have shown that activists struggle with the cognitive dissonance between our values and the cruelty we witness. Anyone ever feel that? It can lead to a consistently negative outlook on some days or some months or in general. and an inability to feel positive emotions or to feel them as much as we'd like to. We can feel guilty about feeling good. Or upon seeing something that has positive dimensions, it just kicks off in our head some sort of thinking about how much negative there is. And then we feel compelled to point that out. Do you ever do that? I do. And I notice myself doing it. And it happens a lot to me on podcasts. I'll describe some tidbit about something that animals are doing or some fact that I've learned that's really exciting and I'm excited about it. It's fascinating. It's fabulous. I want to share it. And whoever I'm talking to will immediately say something like, well, that's not the case for most animals. And my heart drops because I also want to have people excited and interested in animals. But I get it. And I suspect at least one of you, when I was talking excitedly about wild pigs, probably found your thoughts drawn to CAFO images or gestation crates or other issues that are going on for pigs. Maybe more than one of you had that thought. And I know because I had that thought. Many of us become incapable of considering that some animals are doing okay, perhaps beyond the cats and dogs within our homes. And we can't celebrate that some of them are doing okay. Our sense of evil overtakes our sense of recognizing good, and we lose the ability to see beauty and can't sustain feelings of joy. I had a day like that last week, and it was dark, and it didn't feel good. And so that's why I'm here, because I'm hoping that by gathering together, we are able to access some of those things. For advocates and activists, poor mental health takes a lot of forms and entangled terms. Anyone ever hear these? Let's see. I'll go through a list. Vistopia, soulstalgia, environmental grief, compassion fatigue, burnout, eco-anxiety, moral injury. Add your whatever here. There's a lot to unpack in all those terms. I won't do that right now. Perhaps we'll grab one another month. The big question I want to have us ponder today is this. What do we do about our ability to recognize negative situations far more easily than we can see the positive situations around us on those days? Well, research suggests there's a few things we can do, in addition to our advocacy work, that can help us have more stable well-being and lessen the possibility of burnout. And burnout can lead to us leaving the movement, or I should say the movements that we're involved in. Because we're really, really, really good at advocacy and activism. And we're not always so good at taking care of ourselves. So here's 3 recommendations for you. All right, here's what I've got. Number 1, we need to make time to spend with other animals who are living free, noticing them, being inspired by their lives. Sitting among other animals in a shared habitat for a mere 10 minutes, okay, can improve our body's functioning and our mental wellness. 10 minutes. Seeing the color green for just a few minutes can lower your blood pressure. So look out the window, sit outside to have your coffee, meditate with squirrels. I'm always going to slip that one in there. Harmonize with birds. Spend some time with the beings in your habitat. Number 2, we need to spend more time with each other doing things other than just talking about activism, prioritizing laughter and joy. Laughter can significantly reduce your levels of cortisol, which is the stress hormone, lowers your anxiety, promotes a sense of calm and relaxation. That can give us better cardiovascular health, better mental wellness, all sorts of good stuff. So it's time to tell each other more jokes, and preferably ones that don't throw other people under the bus. I guess what my husband always calls dad jokes. But you know, good jokes to make each other laugh. Funny things that we can look at, we can talk about. And third, we need to celebrate and share our successes for animals, not just focus on the endless list of things that haven't happened yet. or judging any success we've had as small or not enough yet, or that celebrating them, and I hear this all the time, celebrating them is ego driven. Celebrating them is not ego driven, it's inspiring. Honoring successes has important biological benefits for us that can help our well being, and they can inspire others into action. And we're going to do that today in our spiritual practice. We're going to do a little honoring of successes. So, to wrap up, as we enter the space together today, I invite you to keep these ideas in mind, see what resonates for you and what doesn't. That's all right. But these are my 3 tips today. And then we invite you to stick around for fellowship after the service. I want to hear from you. We all want to hear from you. What helps you sustain your advocacy for animals, their habitats, and this planet we all have in common? That's what I got for you folks, and a link I'm going to put in about wild pigs. And next, I would like to have join me up here Lars Pardo, who's an animal chaplain and just fabulous human being, who is going to read our Tenets of Agreement this month. Lars, the floor is yours.
Tenets of Agreement. 1. We acknowledge a divine force at the heart of the universe and in all living beings. We may refer to this force as God, but it is known by many names and appears in different forms or is formless. 2. We recognize the common moral principles inherent within all wisdom traditions. 3. We affirm that compassion, reverence for life, and nonviolence are fundamental to religious faith and moral philosophy, and are to be extended to all sentient beings. 4. We stand by the principles of inclusion, diversity, and equality, and hold these as essential in our human relations. 5. We hold that non-human animals are imbued with the same essence of life and love as our human animals, and that there is moral parity between us. 6. We avow that humans do not own the earth, its resources, or its inhabitants, but instead must be involved in their protection and care. Unfortunately, I don't. I, I'm unfortunately I don't have the rest of it. I'm sorry. Has disappeared.
Bill's got them up on the screen right now. So try
You want to
closing the place we gave them to you before.
try 7? 6. We avow that humans. Oh, sorry. We shall repeat. 6. We avow that humans do not own the earth, its resources, or its inhabitants, but instead must be involved in their protection and care. 7. We endeavor to eat and live in a kind and sustainable manner, moving away from animal foods and animal-derived clothing, as well as any activities that cause harm to our fellow beings, human or otherwise. 8. We aim to provide spiritual comfort, fellowship, and food for thought to those practicing or exploring a vegan lifestyle. 9. We offer guidance and peer support for those seeking a more compassionate and spiritual life. 10. We commit to sharing these principles freely with humility and respect in support of non-human animals and the earth. Thank you.
Lars, thank you so much for that. Thank you for being in the tenant seat. We appreciate you. We appreciate your work, and we appreciate you reading those for us. Folks, see how those kind of land inside of you for a minute. If there are any of those that feel important. We think they do. That's why this community is formed this way. So after we read our tenets, usually each month we do a little bit of interspecies practice and, we do some qigong with goats or meditation with a slug. This month we are going to do an interspecies practice that doesn't have any animals who will be on screen, except for one of my favorite human animals. One of my favorite human animals, Victoria Moran, was honored recently for her lifetime of work on behalf of animals and other human beings and habitats. And if the name Victoria sounds familiar, that's because she's one of the co-founders of this organization, and we want to honor her success and then think a little bit about our own successes with some journaling today. So this is going to have two parts. The first is I'm going to ask Phil if you could play the short video so that we can all feel like we were in the room with Victoria when she was honored. It's just about a minute video, and then we'll go from there.
She could be described as a fashionable free thinker with a heart of gold living in New York City. Don't say anything if you've already figured it out, but that's a clue. And here's another clue. Words are her greatest tool, both written and spoken. And a few words that define her are compassion and care for non-human animals, for the earth, for each other, and for ourselves. For more than 50 years, she has been a powerful, consistent, articulate advocate for veganism, animal rights, and ahimsa. It is time to announce the 2024 inductee into the NAVS Hall of Fame, Victoria Moran.
Victoria, well done. Well done. We would like to honor your success here as well. So many of the people who are here today are inspired by you and have been inspired by you. And if you don't know Victoria yet, you'll have an opportunity to see her in just a few minutes as she interviews Shad. But that is quite 50 years. 50 years, a lifetime of doing this work. That touches me in a place that right here in the heart, right? Really, really does. That generosity and her compassion, her sense of humor, and her ability to always look fabulous and calm and cool and collected, even when there's a lot of stuff going on. I admire that. That's one of the traits that I like to pick up from Victoria as well. So each one of you, I think, we have something to celebrate about each of you, each of the people who are here today. And kind of consider in your head, is there something in you that you should celebrate? I'm going to give you a hand with this. Grab paper and a pencil if you've got one nearby, or we're going to do this in our head. Sometimes it's hard for us, again, to see our successes, to see our work, to honor that. Phil, could you bring up my cheater slide? So let's think about these questions, and then I have a little something we're going to do with them afterwards. So they're numbered for a reason. So if you're writing these down, write the numbers along with it. Question 1 is, what are you proud of in your advocacy or activism? The word proud can be hard for some of us. So if that's a prickly word, insert something else. What do you want to celebrate? What do you feel good about? Something that comes to mind for me, which is I talk a lot about squirrels. And I think people think sometimes that's a little bit silly, Sarah, or you're not serious. And I'm damn serious about squirrels. And we receive a lot of squirrel things that come to our house, or people saying to me, I saw a squirrel on the side of the road, been hit by a car, and I thought of you, and I thought of them, and I did an honoring practice, and I slowed down and I stopped texting. That may not sound like a big thing, but with 1 million animals being killed on the road every day, if people are slowing down and not texting, that's a big thing to me. I think a big thing to squirrels. What are you proud of in your advocacy or activism? It might have been just touching one person. Number 2, what legacy do you hope to create during your time on Earth? Does legacy sound like a grand word? What legacy do you hope to create during your time on Earth? We might rephrase that as, what does the fulfillment of your highest purpose look like? Third question to write down or to think about. Takes a little bit of a turn. What is something you wish that people or the animals in your life knew about you? What is something you wish people or animals knew about you? This might be your superpower, or this might be a secret you're a little embarrassed about and you don't tell anyone about, something you really like. What do you wish people knew about you? And finally, who is someone that you admire their work? That could be a human. Or for example, I admire beavers. Like when they make those structures and architects and the whole habitats that they set up, amazing. Who is someone, human or otherwise, to admire their work? Someone who has been an inspiration for you, or an animal that has been an inspiration for you. And now finally, I mean, take a look at those answers. For number 1 and 2, I would like you to give yourself a pat on the back for what you're proud of. Acknowledge it, own it. All the things that you are doing towards your goals here on life. I honor you. I celebrate you. Celebrate yourself. Now think about how to share that thing that you wish someone knew about you as part of the joy and happiness accessing that we all need to do. Share with people who you are. You're amazing. And then finally, think about the person you admire. Make a plan to contact them. Tell them why they mean so much to you. We need to share with each other why we mean so much to each other. Tell the people who inspire you that you've been inspired by them. If they passed from this planet, consider doing it in prayer. Write a letter, burn it in a sacred fire. If it's an animal, tell them too. Tell the beings around you how much you're inspired by them. It helps us keep going. We are all crucial pieces of making a more compassionate world for animals, humans, habitats, and the planet. Your contributions are different from anyone else around you. They're important, and it's important to honor them. All of us play a part on the world's stage every day. Some of us may find ourselves on stages. Other people may be working in a marsh that is their stage, or in the middle of a CAFO that is their stage. Whether it's the sun that fuels us or a divine force, or our sharing with each other how much we inspire each other. You have inspired us. We are thankful for every action you take and everything we hear from you. And we are thankful for your uniqueness. We celebrate you. If that was hard to take in, just notice that it was hard to take in. If it felt good coming in, I would love to give you more. Victoria.
Why, yes.
You're up.
Oh, thank
we
you
love you
so
and we
much.
celebrate you. And I hope I did not embarrass you, but we really do love you so much and
well,
wanted to honor this. So the stage is now yours.
Okay, well, thank you so very much. And thanks to Elaine for what she put in the newsletter. You guys embarrassed me, but in a good way. So thank you. And in this spirit, I kind of want to answer that fourth question you had in the contemplations, Reverend Sarah, and just say that the person whose work that I admire that came to me today is my husband, Reverend William Melton, because he is a creator. So you hear that the Compassion Consortium was founded by Reverend Sarah and Reverend William and myself, and that's true. But the concept was Reverend William's. It came to him on a bus. And you've heard us talk about Miss Liberty, the movie that we're in development with about a cow who escapes from a slaughterhouse. It's a feature film, great big deal, a lot of work, maybe impossible. That's Williams too. He and I are called the co-writers, but it was his concept. It was his creation. It's his idea, his characters, his voice. And I admire that a lot. He's been convalescing the past couple of months and is working really hard on that. And he's here, he's listening in. So I just want to give a shout out, William. You are my admiration person for the day. And speaking of people who create things and found things and make things that change the world, our special spiritual guest today is actually a first for us, meaning that he is a second. This is the second time that Reverend Shad Groverland has been our guest. We've never done that before. And the reason that we are having Reverend Shad on a second time is that when he was on the first time, he was talking about the denomination in which he is an ordained minister and for which he was at that time CEO. And this was Unity Worldwide Ministries. And the reason that we talk maybe a little bit more about Unity than about some other kinds of denominations is because the founders were vehemently vegetarian, as close to vegan as people got in the 1890s. And things have changed there a little bit. Shad's going to talk with us about some of that. And he has gone out and done something very creative on his own. And one reason we wanted to talk to him today is that I know that many of the people who come here for spiritual solace may have left spiritual communities. And but maybe you left not as a clergy member, not as someone powerful in that organization, but you still knew it was kind of tough. And following your inner light is always the right thing to do, but maybe not always the easiest. So with all that in mind, welcome, Reverend Shad Groverland.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, it is exciting to hear what you've got going out there. So give us a little bit of update between when you were here last and what's going on now.
Sure. Well, I'll preface it with, you've probably heard people use the phrase, I didn't leave my party left me. And oftentimes when they're talking about politics, I didn't leave my party left me. And in many ways, that's what I've experienced in my denomination or my faith, or whatever you want to call it, recently, actually over a period of time. So referring to Unity and Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. So I was the CEO of Unity Worldwide Ministries. And in that position, I've always been very passionate about the teachings of our founders, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, who, as you stated, were vegetarian, borderline vegan, possibly vegan at times. And just the truth teachings they had were so inspiring to me and so important to me. I worked really hard to make that a key component again of what we were doing at Unity Worldwide Ministries, and doing a lot of phenomenal work in that organization. But that was one of those things I really want to get back to. And the organization itself is expanding in how it perceives spirituality, and very similar to what we're doing here in this space. And for me personally, what they were doing really centered around what they called practical Christianity. It was really the Christian perspective of this expansive idea of a God that's not just outside us in the clouds, but it's in and around and moving through us as this divine entity. So I was released from my position because really where I was going and the organization we're going in two different directions, and we sort of blessed each other on our way, and that was that. And so I was left with thinking about what's next, and do I go and take on a church? Do I continue what I was doing before? And for my wife and I, it just really became apparent that we so love that really foundational message of these founders, that we wanted to continue that. And the really only way to do that and to really make sure it is that was to start our own church here where they were doing their work, where they brought practical Christianity to the Lee Summit and Kansas City area. So that's what we're doing. We forego the easy part of just getting a job and getting a paycheck and going back to that to launching a new church, which means we're going out on a limb and faith that it's all going to take off, which it feels like it is. And so that's where we're headed.
And what's it called?
It's called Fillmore Church.
So honoring the founders, that's so cool. Now, I know one of the things that you've been interested in, Reverend Shad, is bringing more of a Christian message. It was bringing more of a Christian message back to unity. And my understanding is the Fillmore Church is a Christian denomination. And yet, some of the ideas, such as being plant forward, we'll talk about that in a minute, the inclusiveness and some of these things that are part of practical Christianity aren't what a lot of people think of today when they hear that word. So how do you get all that to work together?
Well, first is acknowledging what beauty there is in Christianity, even fundamental Christianity and traditional Christianity. And if anyone has triggers around that, that it's really time to heal that. And because we've all have probably Christian friends or relatives, and they're really beautiful people. And recognizing that there's people within the Christian denominations that are looking for something a little bit more expansive, something might be a little bit more open-minded, something that might have a little different perspective on the Bible and how they see that. And a lot of them are exiting the Christian churches right now, or they're thinking about it. And that's really where we want Fillmore Church to be welcoming, to be the open door. If someone's looking for a different church experience, that's where they can step into is Fillmore Church. So you kind of, you've got a spectrum from, real evangelical Christianity to interfaith, animal organization we've got right here. There's a lot of segments along the way, a lot of steps along the way, but we want to sit sort of right here where someone's just stepped out of their church or they're just thinking about stepping out of church. They're still Christian. And they still love church and they still love the Bible and still love those things, but they're feeling like there's something different going on. They're reading something different in Jesus's message than being shared to them from the pulpit. And there's an inner calling for something more. Well, we want to answer that. And that's what I really feel Charles and Myrtle Fillmore specifically were doing in the time they were doing it. They were serving that demographic. It's like, how do we take Christianity deeper? We don't abort it. We don't just give up on it. It's doing great things, but how do we take it a little bit deeper? How do we give a different perspective on the Bible? And so we want to sit right in that spot. And that's really where I feel like my jam is, and my wife and I, and that's just, it's an awesome spot to be.
So where in Christianity, as you see it, does kindness, respect for non-human beings enter in?
I don't know a place where it doesn't enter in. If we're going to just get to the very fundamental basics of it, is thou shalt not kill. And there's no asterisk at the end of that says, and that only applies to humans, or that only applies to your family members, or that only applies to people within your country. It's just thou shalt not kill. Now, that's a pretty lofty goal to reach because there's tiny little organisms around us all the time that we're accidentally stepping on, or we're scratching off our skin, all sorts of things. So I like to bring everything back to, we are aspiring to do the best we can with what we have and everything we do. Even when we are doing Plant Forward, or we're talking about politics, we're talking about how I should have to be a better person. We're not shooting for perfection. We're aspiring to do the best we can. So that's where we want to land things is thou shalt not kill. All right. Well, I, of course, have accidentally driven over an ant on my way here, but I'm doing the best I can to be aware of not doing any more harm than I consciously am doing. And so in that sense, I think that message resonates throughout the Bible. And you see the Bible as a progression from sacrifice in the early forms of the Bible to later getting on to, okay, well, we're not going to do that anymore. And then we're becoming more aware and more aware. And it's this really beautiful journey of humanity, sort of learning how to engage with each other, nature, and everything else around it to become more aware.
And one of the other things that you very much are in harmony with the Fillmores is the idea of a healing ministry. And I've read in some places, oh, that's old-fashioned. Yeah, we can see why somebody like Mary Baker Eddy would have come up with Christian Science when she did, and the other New Thought churches that had healing as part of their ministry because they didn't have antibiotics yet. We don't need that stuff now. And yet, with the Fillmore Church, you're bringing the healing back. Tell us about that.
Well, when you look at the world today, we've got the most advanced medicine we've ever had on the planet. We have the most expensive, healthcare system probably in the world in this country, and people are sicker than they've ever been. So fundamentally, if it was working, we should be the healthiest we've ever been. So we might be living longer, but we're living longer sicker. So something's still amiss. And when we look at, if you're trying to see the body as just a physical form that you deal with chemical solutions, then you're missing a larger picture. You have mind, body, soul. You have this threefold nature of us. And if you're trying to just teach or treat one aspect of that, you've done sectionalism, and it's just never going to be as successful as you look at the holistic system. So I think that's part of what Myrtle's realization was when she healed herself of tuberculosis, just using affirmations and denials of her mind, denying the power that an illness has over her. For her, it was tuberculosis, and affirming the power that she has to be a whole and beautiful being without this ailment. And so that is possibly still the most powerful form of healing in the world today, because one, it's our power. We're not paying some outside source to take care of it for us. It doesn't come with side effects that we have to list off on a giant carton to say, or a commercial at the end that's railing off all the side effects. It's already within us. And so it's really acknowledging that if I'm a child of God, we really think about it, if I'm a child of God, if I'm a child of this infinite perfection and this infinite knowledge, I would have to have the knowledge and perfection within myself to heal and to be whole. And so that's really one of the key things that the Fillmores had going into this experience. We really want to bring that back into this church. And we honor any form of medicine that someone uses that works for them. There is no shame in that. We all go to what works for us. That decision's between us and God. But to remind ourselves of this incredible power we have to heal ourselves and to help heal the people around us, with just the power of the words, the thoughts, with prayers, with meditation, and diet and exercise and everything else we know to do.
That's very forward, not to mention plant forward, which is another phrase that's come up about the Fillmore Church. Tell us what that means in connection to what you guys are doing out there.
So absolutely. So all the way through Myrtle Fillmore's passing, they were very big on being vegetarian, being vegan, being very aware of our impact on animals and around us. And I'm just going to read exactly what they had written out of this book that some people might recognize here. I'm sure Carol is going to recognize this book. They wrote 32 statements of faith. These are the 32 core tenets of what they believe. And they say, we believe that all life is sacred and that man should not kill or be party to the killing of animals for food. Also, that cruelty, war, and wanton destruction of human life will continue so long as men destroy animals. So they had this really expansive concept that it's not just what we do to animals affect us personally, which we might recognize as karma if we're going to talk about the Hindu faith, but really that what we do to animals is affecting all of us globally, because it's a consciousness of better than gets to do harm on the lesser than. And regardless of how you break that out in any individual section, whether it's me over a cat or over a mouse or whatever it is, that single seed thought germinates into all of creation. And now we can have war because one country's better than gets to do harm on a lesser than, one nation, one state, one group of people, and that spreads through everything we do. So really, if we can trace it back to this seed thought that we don't have right to do harm to another, that goes back to how we eat, how we live, what we wear, all these things. So that really was an important part of what they were doing while Myrtle Fillmore was alive. And then after her passing, it started to drift out of the organization over time. So I think the real magical time for this work of practical Christianity that they were doing was while Myrtle and Charles were doing it together, both alive. There was something powerful about that union, and they're doing amazing things. So that's where the Fillmore Church is going to focus our efforts, is that time frame, looking at it from a modern perspective, but the work they did at that time.
And that's one of the things that I'm fascinated by what you're doing, because you remind me very much of what I understand of the history of unity and what the Fillmores were doing early on. And yet you're doing it in such a modern context. So your church is in a co-working space, very much 2024.
Right.
So tell us a story about Charles Fillmore and a picnic.
This is Carol's laughing already. This is sort of the story keeps getting handed down. The basic concept of the story is that you have a picnic on the grounds at Unity Village, and of course, different people are bringing different things. And Charles Fillmore comes out to the table where all the food is sprouted and finds out that they have uh, meat hot dogs there. And obviously, he's vegetarian. Myrtle's vegetarian, and the story goes that he's quite upset at that, to the point that he actually takes one of the hot dogs and he nails it to a tree around the picnic area. What statement he was trying to make there, whether he was comparing it to Jesus or something else, I don't know, but it was a pretty bold move, and it's bold enough that we still talk about it today. It was probably almost 100 years ago when it happened.
Well, that's very cool. May people talk about all of us 100 years from now. So when you were talking about what you had been trying to do within the framework of the Unity organization, and it seemed like that thinking was going in kind of two ways. You were going more toward practical Christianity, you had your plant forward message, and you had a lot of interest in these, is it 38 tenets?
32.
32, and we probably find six more. And it seems like your colleagues there were wanting to go in a freer way. Now, it's interesting for those of us here at the Compassion Consortium. I think we're all very into the idea of freedom. We're very much into the idea of don't tell me what to do. And yet, on the other hand, there's a certain rigor to parameters. So tell us what you think about parameters and religions and where we get the balance.
So I did a lot of traveling with my wife, visiting a lot of different ministries, not just Unity ministries, different ministries as we were traveling. And you find that if you don't have guardrails, you don't have direction, right? A river has banks, and those banks allow a river to flow. If you don't have those banks, the water goes horizontal, it sits, becomes stagnant, and becomes dangerous. So there's something about having guardrails, having banks, so we're all moving and flowing in the same direction. And I think that's crucially important for this time, because there's this swell of independence coming out, which is beautiful, but that also can get attached to ego. That I'm going to do whatever I want, when I want it, however I want it, and that's not necessarily a healthy place to be in. So having an organization that says that's great, but here, when you're with us, we do it within the confines of these guardrails to help you move forward in your progression. Because without this, you might just be bouncing around like a ping pong, and you try this religion this day and then this religion this day. And then when you get to the hard part of that religion, you jump over to this one. But really, any spiritual path is going to get to a point where it becomes more difficult because you're starting to challenge the ego and challenge the aspects of yourself that need to change. And if we keep jumping to the next religion every time we meet that point on that path where we're supposed to be challenging and pushing through, we're never moving through. So it can become a buffet of the nice things from each faith and a buffet of the nice things from each religion, but never none of the actual difficult things from those that were there to actually push you through to that next breakthrough. So we're really just you're sort of jumping around the fun stuff, and really the fruitful stuff is what we're leaving out. And so some spiritual leaders, Paramahansa Yogananda would say you get spiritual indigestion because you've just been eating of the spiritual buffet.
Oh, I love that. Well, no more spiritual indigestion. I think there's a brilliant idea, I think, for all of us at the Compassion Consortium, is just this idea of keeping the focus on what's a little bit higher. That probably sounds like a hymn or something. A little bit higher, a little bit more inclusive, a little bit more of bringing everybody in. And that sounds a lot like you too, Reverend Shad Groverland. So blessings on you and the Fillmore Church. We'll be so excited to see where things go there. And what's the website?
Quite easy. Fillmore.church.
That's easy. And I
Yes.
am passing it along to Jen for our Song of Compassion.
Hi, everyone. This month's Song of Compassion continues our 3-month series at looking at animal responses to music. Last month, we looked at a Coloradan family who have a special relationship with music and foxes. This month, we see Paul Barton play Debussy's Clair de Lune for a gentle female elephant named Ampam. At this time of the recording, Ampam is 80 years old, which is about 10 years past the natural lifespan of an elephant in the wild. She's blind in one eye and can barely see with the other. The music Paul plays helps provide the elephants with mental stimulation, emotional support, stress relief, while fostering a deeper human-animal connection. So let's take a look.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Compassion in Action. Today, we're just so ecstatic to welcome Reverend Carol Saunders. She has also been here before, but one of the things we wanted to feature is her upcoming event that she's planning, the Whole Planet Spirituality Forum and Retreat. It's taking place, the secondary title, the theme this year is A World That Works for All. And it's taking place October 17th through the 20th, 2024, this year at Unity Village. So welcome, Carol. Yay, I want to hear all about what's coming up in October.
Thanks, Elaine. It's so great to be with everyone. I'm so happy to share this event. When Rev Sarah opened with this celebrating, who we are and what we've accomplished, one of the things I love that I feel very proud of is creating this amazing community out of this retreat. And we'll talk about the community aspect of it in a minute. So I think what I'll just share is what's going to happen at this retreat. The theme, we're in our 4th year. And this is really an idea that kind of happened between Victoria and me in a car back in like 2018 or 19 or so. And anyway, so we're in our 4th year. We plan to be at Unity Village every year doing this retreat because of the energy of the Fillmores that Rev Shad just shared. So every year we have a different theme. And this year we're going to be focusing on how are we going to create this new world that we have envisioned. So we're working with imagination and doing some inner work and recognizing that we really can't step into a new world at the same level of consciousness that we created this one. So we're really about doing inner work so that we can raise our own consciousness and be at a place where we can create this new world. Now we have a keynote speaker, and that is John Pierre this year. And I think you all probably know who he is. He's going to be doing a talk on his planet-based living and also on brain building. And he's going to be also doing a workshop in the morning on balance and things like that to kind of get us, physically ready for the day. And we have a series of great speakers, workshop leaders like Judy Carmen, who's going to be helping us step into the vision of Homo Ahimsa. Donna Sauerberger is doing a workshop on the Big U, where we're going to build beliefs that support us. Silas Rao will be with us again, and we're going to be really delving into his book, The Pinky Promise, but actually questioning like how can we imagine this new world? And we also have great food, Cafe Gratitude, Gigi's Vegan Cafe. It's all organic, plant-based. And we're also going to be doing a movie screening of Alison Argo's new movie, Forever Home. Now, that's some of the stuff we're doing. We're balancing it also with spiritual practices and sacred services to honor who we are, honor animals, honor habitats, and celebrate what's good about the world, and also bring forth those animals that we may be in mourning for, or habitats that we're being mourning for, and just going to be a container for all of those feelings. What I love so much about this retreat is that people walk away feeling uplifted, and they feel like they've been building an amazing community. In the evenings, we get together and connect and collaborate, and people really become friends and leave with a community, and we stay connected throughout the year. So that's one of the things I'm most proud of about this very special retreat. Something magical happens here.
Well, that was one question I did want to ask you. Victoria has said it is one of the most special events she's ever attended, and I wanted to ask you what makes it special. I think you've partially answered that. Not only is it inspiring, but it sounds like it's transformative to the individual.
That's what we're experiencing. I mean, we've been evolving over 4 years. So our very first retreat was a lot more conferencey, a lot of presentation after presentation, and learning. And we've learned to kind of temper that with the inner work and the walks in nature and the connecting within and having sacred ceremonies and having time for connection and collaboration, not just over meals, but also during the day. So when we receive new information and we process it in groups or we process it individually, and something happens that is magical. Something happens, I think, in the heart, where we come away feeling more energized, more supported, and also more connected. And I think there's another part of this, and that is the really fantastic energy at Unity Village. Very hard to describe, but Unity Village has been there for like 135 years. And there's been a prayer ministry that had been going on there 24/7 for all that time. And there's something about that space that just feels lighter. It also is set on, I can't remember how many hundreds of acres of woods. So there's also plenty of nature and beautiful fountains and rose gardens, but there's something about a lightness of being when you're there also. So I would attribute it to the grounds. I would attribute it to the fabulous presenters that we have, our ability to be a container for each other. And this, like I say, it's interesting. I'm in LA right now visiting daughters and a granddaughter, and I had a 6-hour labor in Kansas City. And most people think that's horrendous. But what I did was I sent an email to some of the people in that area, the greater Kansas, Missouri area, and said, hey, I'm going to be at the Kansas City airport. I got a 6-hour layover. Anyone want to join me for lunch? And I had 11 people show up. And that's the retreat. So that was the retreat. These are people I haven't known for years and years and years. It's people that I've connected with, from the retreat. So that's the kind of community that we're creating. And I have a, every 6 week Zoom meeting so we can really stay connected. And I think you want to ask about virtual too, because I really, really encourage people to come in person if you can, because, we like to be with each other. We like to connect and to see each other face to face. But we also offer an immersive experience for those who are attending virtually, and they become part of the community as well. And before I forget, I forgot at the very beginning, Rev Shad is one of our presenters, and he's going to be talking to us more about his Plant Forward Church. So I think I mentioned the other presenters and I forgot him, but he's a key presenter. He's always presented, but from the standpoint of his leadership position at Uni Worldwide Ministries, now we're going to find out more about how can we bring this idea of a plant forward church into our own spiritual communities? Because people have trouble. People who are parts of spiritual communities, parts of churches, not everybody is. In fact, we welcome everybody. Doesn't matter if we have atheists, we have people from all different denominations, different faith traditions, and also none. So anybody can come. We will engage in spiritual practices like meditation and things like that, but anybody's welcome. But those who are in spiritual communities, there's this frustration that we all talk about love and connection and unity. And then we go to these potlucks and there's dead bodies everywhere. And it makes us very ill, and it makes us question what is wrong with this place. And so I'm looking forward to having Shad help us, perhaps encourage us, and how can we bring these plant forward church ideas into our spiritual community, and see if we can't spread that out more.
Well, thank you for that. And I do feel that many of us, I really welcome the virtual aspect. I may have a fear of missing out because I'm not sharing the same air, or breathing the same air as Jean-Pierre or other heroes that are there, and other people that inspire us. But thank you for making it virtual, because some of us who can't come, at least we get to attend. At least we get to share in the wisdom that's being imparted. And that's a huge thing for us, especially when people live in an area where people who are pro-animal are not valued at all. So sometimes it's like, oh, here's our tribe. I can come spend a weekend with him.
Right. And what you can expect if you attend virtually, it's not going to be like a Zoom room. It's not going to be like this. There's going to be a camera on the speaker, and you'll see the slides and you'll see the speaker as if you were attending. So we try to make it as immersive as possible. And then when we're doing our group work there in person at Unity Village, we'll split you off into breakout rooms. So you have your own group work. And so the virtual people end up kind of connecting with their tribe there too. And if you're attending virtual and you have a question, you'll be able to interact with the presenter. So it's not like we're going to bring you into the groups that are there in person, but if you have questions, we'll be able to relay your questions to the presenter, so you can participate with that as well. And we have several virtual people that stays with us in our every 6 weeks when we meet virtually on Zoom in between retreats.
That's fabulous. And we have to close now, but Reverend Carol, thank you so much. I'm going to be on the other side of the camera this year, so I will.
Oh, great. I just want to say thespiritualforum.org/retreat. So if somebody can put that, it looks like it is up.
It's in the chat right now.
Okay, great.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right,
Sarah,
thank you.
Over to you.
Thanks, Elaine. What is it about vehicles? So William dreams up the Compassion Consortium on a bus, And Victoria and Carol dream up the fall retreat in a car. So there you go, folks. Thank you, Shad and Carol, for sharing your work. We celebrate you, and thank you for sharing that with us. And it sounds like it's going to be a great fall retreat. So we have time for a little bit of good news, and then engaging in some blessings and prayers for the things that are on your mind. Here's the good news that I'm bringing this month. First, our friends at Animal Culture magazine report that beavers are back in the UK. Wildlife vet Sean McCormick of the Ealing Beaver Project announced that 2 kits were born in the Greater London area for the first time in over 400 years. Wow. All right, good news number 2 is Phil's got the slide up for me. Thank you. All right, this is Hawaii. Does anyone remember almost exactly a year ago that the Maui wildfires devastated the community of Lahaina there? 102 people died, lots of homes were destroyed, wildlife and flora and fauna were devastated, including this tree, which is a 151-year-old banyan tree. It's a year later, and folks there report that parts of the tree have begun to regrow, hundreds of new leaves, and even fruit growing on some branches. Volunteers and arborists have been tending to this tree for the entire year, which has been a gathering place for generations and is important to the community. It is 60 feet tall, and its trunks, multiple trunks, cover almost 1 full acre of land. Why is this good? Now, this is good news for people who love trees. Why is this good news for animal activists and advocates? That tree is a habitat. It's almost an acre wide. It's home to so many species, and I am so glad that they are getting a healthiness back to their home and their habitat. So I'd like to invite you all into doing a blessing for the leafy ones with me. It goes a little like this. If you would put your feet down on the floor and close your eyes if it's comfortable. And imagine your feet are tree trunks. Push down onto the ground, and beneath them you'll find the mycelium, the fungi, the other tree roots that you connect to for wellness and nutrients, sustenance and support. And if you're willing to, then raise your hands up like branches. Stretch them out far and wide towards the sun or whatever is nearby you. I've got some track lighting that's going to set in for the sun today. Imagine that your branches are reaching out, and on your arms are beautiful birds, squirrels. I got a hawk on my left arm. I got a woodpecker doing something to my right hand. I'll let him go for just a little bit. Imagine yourself as a habitat, connecting through your feet and sharing space and food with your arms. Press once more into the ground, down to all of those roots that connect you to all of the other trees and that connect each of us together right now in our treeness. And send out words of encouragement, blessing, good wishes, thoughts of hope and growth, sustenance, thoughts of balance with those who chew on trees, who might, through their need to eat, be causing harm to trees. Send your blessing to them. And now blinking your eyes open. All of a sudden, I just thought my eyes were like those knotty wood holes in the trunks of trees. Blink them open. And I'll ask Phil there on the bridge to please open up the chat. And before we go into our fellowship time together, we attend to our challenges and our good news. If you've got good news, we've got a challenge. Please feel free to put it in the chat if you would like it read aloud and honored. If you'd like to send me something private for some prayers after tonight and throughout the week, you can private message to me as well. Please enter anything you'd like to share in there. And Suzanne has given us one, kind of pre-given us one that I'd like to offer in here. Remind ourselves that today is also the 1-year anniversary of Lolita the dolphin, also known as Toki, passing from this planet. May her memory continue to be both a tragic reminder of captive, large ocean creatures and a sacred blessing for those who knew or were inspired by her and are missing her on what we might call the yard site in the Jewish tradition. If you have anything else you'd like to attend to in the chat, blessings for the challenges of Michelle and Bill and Jerry and William. Blessings to all of those who are in Maui right now. One of you is in Maui and just private messaged me, so blessings for all of you. To any of you who've lost companion animals, to any of you who are concerned by the animals who are being lost in your habitat. Know that you can reach out to us at compassionconsortium@gmail.com throughout the month also if you'd like to get something on my prayer list. Some good news that Robin's mule companion, Jeremiah, is doing really well, trusting trustworthy humans, and just got his front hooves trimmed. Go, Jeremiah. And I just got a little PM from someone joining the animal chaplaincy program. I saw a lot of you new folks here today, and we're so delighted you're all on board. Debbie and the Gang of Fur would like us to envelop our beautiful Mother Earth and our animal cousins with the love they deserve. Amen, Debbie and the Gang of Fur. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Phil, if you will bring up our slide as the remaining ones come in here. A blessed feline companion, Sparkle, passed away a year ago tomorrow. I miss her, and I am inspired by her. Yeah, how many of you are inspired by those animal companions you live with or who have passed on to the what's next, what I call the what's next? Yeah, a blessed yard site for Sparkle, too. And I'm not sure if one that just came to me is a PM, is private or public. So Jeff, let me know about that one. And we will get ready for our closing prayer and blessing here. We invite all of you at the end of our service to engage in this with us. So let me pass on Jeff's blessing and then we'll all attend to this final blessing together. Dr. Jeff, who we adore and are inspired by, also says blessings to Elaine for getting the path to pet wellness ready for the world to see. Yes, I'm dealing with a sick Bubbagy right now. I got a sick tuxedo cat. So any path to wellness for our animal companions, I am on board. So I will include Bubbagy in there that we will figure out what's going on with his coffin and all of that kind of stuff. All right, friends. Friends, take a deep breath with me, and I invite you to say this aloud. May all creatures everywhere be happy and free. May the thoughts, words, and actions of our lives contribute to this happiness and this freedom for all. And please add in your closing word from your spiritual tradition, whether that be, may it be so, amen, amen, so mote it be. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. and slipping in an extra prayer for the 21-year-old vegan cat Raj, who passed in Priya's arms on July 27th. We love you all, we celebrate you all, and we wrap you all in comfort when you need it. And Phil, if you could bring up the slides again, I just want to remind folks, thank you for joining us today. If you found this service useful, please consider making a donation. We've got some costs over here. Most of the folks are working on a volunteer basis here, but we do have some expenses, and we really, really appreciate your donations, either to the QR code that Phil is going to bring up there on screen. You can just take your phone and zap that thing. Or you can also go to the link that is in the chat right now. We really do appreciate this. It makes a big difference. Skip a latte and see if you can send your $4 or $5 our way. And we thank the engaged members for their monthly contributions. And now, Jen, Phil, keep those slides on up because Jen has a few upcoming announcements for us. Stick around, folks. We're going to talk with some fellowship groups after this. Jen, the floor is yours.
Well, I read a few announcements. Phil has given you all the opportunity to turn on your video cameras if you'd like. We'd love to see all your beautiful faces as we close the service and move into our fellowship time, so please feel free to join us now. A reminder that you can catch all past episodes, spiritual and meditative practices, plus guest interviews on our YouTube channel. In August, our special spiritual guest will be Rabbi David Rosen, former Chief Rabbi of Ireland. He currently serves as the American Jewish Committee's International Director of Interreligious Affairs. Our Compassion in Action will be Reverend Marshall Hammer, Inspirational Minister, Reiki Practitioner, and Program Coordinator at our Animal Chaplaincy Training Program. Join the weekly online peaceful half hour of vegan-oriented meditation and mindful sharing with David Simon every Monday evening. At our Engaged Member Practice Circle this month, Reverend Sarah is offering a practice inspired by the Zoroastrian tradition, which will include learning about roles of dogs and about honoring the harvest season. If you or someone you know has experienced an animal loss, visit findanimalchaplain.com to locate a chaplain near you. And join us August 8th at 6:30 Eastern for our monthly companion animal loss and grief peer support group. Introducing a new offering extended to compassionists, join Elena Sigler on a Zoom space for individuals involved with animal advocacy and animal caregiving to share and support each other with the emotional challenges that can come with animal rights activism. It alleviates the sense of isolation, which as animal advocates and animal caregivers, we can often feel. Share whatever feels right in the moment, and it's completely okay if you choose not to share, but come join if you'd like.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you all for coming to our Sunday service.